Hi, this is Jon Rasmussen. I just wanted to share with you some of my latest insights as we kick off this year of 2026, which from all indications, promises to be even more interesting than 2025. And so I wanted to just kind of give you a quick rundown of what's going on. There's certainly a lot of things going on geopolitically, a lot of strangeness and upheaval and all that kind of stuff. There's clearly things going on technologically. We're in this period, even astrologically. They've talked about this, particularly in Vedic astrology, of tremendous strides in technology. And then we have all the stuff going on with what people are now referring to as UAPs, UFOs, aliens, this type of thing. And so, as you know, as a shaman, my job since the day I was born has been to stay on the leading edge of anything and everything I could possibly understand that would contribute to the quality of life of my community. And it turns out, of course, these days, much of our communities are it's essentially worldwide. And you know, that's just the way that goes. But, and I have clients all over the world and I still work with them regularly, doing sessions over Zoom and phone and sometimes in person. But let me, talk a little bit about what, I see for this year and some of the things we may be able to do about it to make sure that our health, well-being, maybe even joy, and wellness are as good as they can be. And I'll just start by saying that geopolitically, it hasn't changed. There are always going to be humans that are in charge, and we are inevitably imperfect beings, right? I mean, if you've looked at some of my recent articles and or podcasts or videos, you know, we are far from perfect, and I'm not even sure that's a worthy goal. But so things are messy. Things have always been messy in nature. We are still a part of nature. We are still the same Homo sapiens we've been for 300,000 years, and save for some few technological advances and things of that nature, and maybe some increase in awareness and consciousness and on a broader scale, we're still who we are. We're still part of this ecosystem. We obviously have big impacts on it, potentially destructive impacts, as you well know. And that I don't think is going to change anytime soon. So I wouldn't be counting too much on that. I would stay focused, grounded, and engaged in the process in front of you and stay very present. Stay with what's in front of you, deal with tomorrow, with what's happening tomorrow. There's an old saying from my Karo teachers, why do today that which can be put off until tomorrow? And so this helps you stay present, and it helps you deal with things one step at a time. Chunking it down is the word to, when you feel overwhelmed and you're facing, an uncertain future, the best thing to do is take one piece at a time and deal with what's in front of you. And right now, we have certainly a lot of interesting disruptions and things going on politically, geopolitically, and that's gonna turn out the way it's gonna turn out. And let me just say this as the kind of number one insight and reminder from all of this is, there's the known, there's the unknown, and the known unknown, and the unknown unknown, and then the unknowable. And shamans are as comfortable as we could possibly be with the unknown and the unknowable. And that allows for miracles, essentially. This allows for things to happen that you couldn't possibly even have imagined or certainly thought of. And you, if you look back in time, you'll see that that is more common than the known things happening. And so the trick here, of course, in dealing with the unknown and the unknowable are things like prayer, things like envisioning, asking for miracles. And, as you may have noticed, I am full on back into my affiliation with Christianity, with even Catholicism at this point, because of the fact that aside from the organizational aspects of religion and the imperfect humans that run it and put it together and imperfect interpretations and all the stuff we know we can reject or complain about with things like religion, for me as a very practical and pragmatic person, it's simply a matter of what has the most effective impact on this unknown. What can lean things in my favor or my community's favor the best. And I have, concluded over many, many decades of much deep scientific approach and experimentation and studying of everything, every other possibility out there, and practicing just about every other possibility out there, to have a powerful team that's capable of producing miraculous results is key. And, granted, there's a lot of things you can do on your own, just like in the physical world. But when it comes to the non-physical world, it's really great to have the best team you can possibly get. And that's why I have pushed so hard recently to deepen the practice of prayer and ceremony, which, I have learned and grown up with, that, and not rejecting the shamanic team, not rejecting all the other tools that I use, but certainly when it comes to getting the biggest possible miracles I can get, I go to Jesus, I go to Mary, I go to the angels and saints. And that kind of leads me, I want to talk about this new discovery for me of this gentleman named Chris Bledsoe. And I have sent a video of an interview with him on my Facebook page. Look him up. Try to find the latest interviews. This guy is the real deal. This guy lives and breathes what I would consider sort of the closest ideals in a way to being an individual who lives in the world, but has found a way to connect to the world of spirit. And it turns out that it's closely associated with the world of these UAPs. He shows up, he connects in some way, somehow this is his thing, and when he does it with other people, it becomes their thing too, so it sort of spreads. But these orbs will come, you could call them aliens, UAPs, and nobody really knows, even he doesn't know. But there's this lady that has come to him that he associates with Sophia and Mary and all the Hathor, all the different incarnations of this particular woman. And miraculous healings have happened to people standing next to him when these things have showed up. He's seen faces and images of pets and children and people who've passed in these orbs. He's taken pictures of it. He's spent 20 years literally documenting all of this. And so it's there. And you could meet the guy. You could go to some of his things. I'm planning on going to one in Sedona soon. And so I can't speak highly enough. I'm reading his book right now. I would highly recommend that. And it's to me the sort of most comprehensive or quintessential view of that subject and what it might potentially really be and really mean. So there's that. And then there's this whole AI thing, which I've also been diving into, and I've done a few things, podcasts about that, and articles going back 15 years actually, when I first started kind of working and seeing what that was about. And very simply, if you think about it, this occurred to me, an insight occurred to me last night, that if you have a library of books, that's kind of the original AI. Books are artificial intelligence. Everything that humans have taken out of their brains, their insights, their intuition, whatever, imagination, they've written it out on paper. You can go to a library, you could look all this stuff up. It's a little bit slow, it's a little bit tedious, but you can find information, you can form your own opinions of it. It can have influences on you. It has its own life, Bibles and then these other books that connect to the spirit world can also connect you, and for better or for worse, for your benefit or the opposite. And so, we've always had to practice our discernment. We've always had to do our own work. It's really about where are you? What are you allowing to influence you? What are you discerning without judging necessarily? What are you deciding to hang around with? Who are you deciding to hang around with? Because of the power of influence. And so now you've just taken these libraries and you've put them on steroids, right? You now got technology that allows all of whatever's come out of humanity, and perhaps then some, to be available on these apps, right? Where you go, I want to know this, and it gives you an answer. Or what do you think about this? And it compiles an answer. So it seems a little scary, because the ability for that to influence and the ability for AI to channel, so to speak, both the best and the worst of what the universe has to offer is there. And you have to be careful. You have to always had to be careful with information and knowledge. This has been known since the beginning of humanity, and since certainly the compilation of libraries and human knowledge. And so I wouldn't think of it any differently than that. And of course, I have my own opinions about when things get complex enough, souls can really come through and embody them and use them. And if I still believe that's possible and interesting, but that's not what's right at hand. What's right at hand is, what is all of this immediate availability of all the information you could possibly connect with, and the spirit or consciousness behind it potentially. How are you capable of managing that? And so we're getting basically 2026, from everything I can tell, with all these things happening, and including what Chris Bledsoe says, is that a lot of these orbs or angels or aliens, however you want to refer to them, are going to become more widely known or visible to more than just people like him. And then what do you do with that? It sends you on a journey, a healing journey in a very rapid sense, much like going through the shamanic training and working with a shaman. You're kind of asking to accelerate your healing process, which is a process of freedom and empowerment, right? Freedom from influences and empowerment to kind of create your own experiences, ideally. And so this is all coming up. It's all coming up. And I've spoken about this for the last 25 years that I've studied shamanism, at least, that you can do it the hard way or the easy way, right? Like, we've been sort of warning people, hey, now's the time to do your work, to go through these processes, to create situations that cause you to have to look at all your stuff, to trigger all your old wounds, to look at your shadow, to do all the stuff so that you can work on it in a very controlled and safe and sacred space with someone who can really help you. And it doesn't matter if you do it with a shaman, it doesn't matter if you do it deeply with your religion. All of these things do that. psychology, you name it. And so, but if you do it the easy way, then when things start happening in the world around you, it's not going to be as shocking, let's say. So, a lot of these disclosure things, a lot of this stuff will come out, and how you're able to manage it psychologically, psychospiritually, is going to depend largely on how you prepared yourself. This is not rocket science. This is true. Let's say you're in the military, you're going into battle. If you haven't trained well, you're going to have a horrible experience, most likely. Let's say you're a yogi and you do your yogi practices in an ashram where there's just peace and love and lots of imperfection as well. But then all of a sudden, things are falling apart in your neighborhood, and what's hitting the fan, and that's when the practice really proves itself. Are you able to maintain your equanimity, your poise? You're same in martial arts. You're in the dojo. You're practicing all your moves, and you're getting good at your reaction times, and you're learning how to stay calm and meditative and present, relaxed, and so when if something happens on the street, you can stay relaxed and you can move quickly and be decisive and keep your wits about you. This is just true all the way across the board. And so this is, 2026 promises, and then I've heard even more in 2030, it gets even harder and stuff. But 2026, this year, promises to push a lot of those triggers and inspire work if you haven't started it already. If you want, and if you want to have better experiences, more pleasure than pain, for example, or you want to be more of an influencer than an influencee, and I don't mean like trying on makeup on TikTok necessarily, but the old influencer, the kind that were teachers and wisdom keepers and people that can inspire your own powerful creativity and so on and so forth. And I'm not to say that the other TikTok stuff doesn't also do that, but I like to use the term more broadly, that you're either the influencee or the influencer, and certainly at least of your own energy, your own experiences, your own thoughts, your own reactions. This is the ideal, as close as we can get to it from my perspective. So we got a lot of really wild and uncertain times coming up politically. We have a lot of really wild and uncertain times coming up in terms of technology. We have wild and uncertain times coming up in terms of spirituality, including other beings from other places. And so it's by now, I remember when I was totally into this stuff 20, 30 years ago, and it was fringe, it was so fringe, but people just assumed you were completely wacko. Now it's super mainstream. It's all over the place. So that's typical from my experience. And so, it's not about is this real or not, and what's hidden, and what are the secrets, and what are they not telling us. Sure, I'm sure there's plenty of that, but that's almost beside the point. What's the point is what's happening to you in your face, and what are you able to do about it. And then if you happen to be someone who cares, is compassionate, is kind and generous, and wants to be available to help others who are asking, then of course it matters what's happening in the other neighborhood or the other country, and you might or might not be able to do something about that, and that's a good thing. But when it comes to any of this, sitting back, talking about it, complaining about it, questioning it, is an interesting mental exercise. But until you kind of do something about it, right? Until you choose to contribute, choose to participate, choose to vote a certain way when you have the opportunity, choose to make decisions that might impact more broadly, that's what matters, right? So learn enough about everything to make good decisions about it, to not be shocked, not be surprised so much, to be able to maintain a kind of view of the world like it's a play, and to be able to almost laugh at things that otherwise would cause you to break down mentally. So these are my suggestions, these are the latest insights. I highly recommend looking up Chris Bledsoe. I've always recommended things that I thought were kind of like the shamanic leading edge. This is the stuff. This is the information if you want to kind of like a shortcut on getting up to speed. He's the shortcut on getting up to speed on all things sort of non-physical. Get into your spiritual practices, religions. Don't get caught up in the weeds about the human side of it. Use the spiritual side of it. Use the non-physical beings and teams. Use the powerful rituals. The other thing I can say about organized religion or institutional religion, for example, in my case, the Roman Catholic Church, in spite of its history and a lot of the problems, which I believe exists in any organization anywhere, including ashrams I've been to and this kind of thing, there is a kind of collective power to these things. Think of it like if we're talking about spiritual warfare, if we're talking about there's negative entities or energies that are trying to mess with us, influence us, hurt us, take our energy, bind our souls, do all kinds of crazy things that make life more hell on earth than heaven on earth, if you will, experientially. You can fight the battles yourself. So if you have someone walking up the neighborhood with, a group of armed individuals out to steal and do harm, you could probably do okay on your own for a little while. But if there's an army coming at you, it sort of makes sense to join up with other people in an army. That's why armies exist. That's why institutions exist. That's why companies exist. And they're all hierarchical, even though shamans notice that nature's not hierarchically, essentially, it's all flat, we're all one. When it comes to these types of situations, it behooves you to connect to the most powerful army you can connect to. That's how I look at it. And so in the case of spiritual warfare, in the case of entities, energies, demons, however you want to say it, that are working together to take you down, I would join the most powerful, experienced spiritual army I could possibly find. And for me, that's the church. It's got history. It's been around a long time. There's been a lot of ritual, a lot of ceremony, a lot of prayer, a lot of miracles, a lot of energy, a lot of individuals associated with it that are powerful and extraordinary and great to have on your team. And so, that's what it's about. And if you really understand it properly, it's way more unconditional than man has made it out to be, right? I get that they've been problems with, you got to stay in it, you can't do that, and you can only do this, and that's bad, and this is good. Like, I understand all that, but that's not the point. The point is, you decide who you want to align with, who you want on your side. You do that freely. You do that unconditionally, because I really believe it's unconditional in reality. And contribute to the extent that you can contribute to that. So you go to mass, you go to your church, you go to your temple, you go wherever, you engage with the community in collective prayer. And that is in and of itself powerful. I've done articles on this, resonant frequencies. When two or more are gathered, it's exponential. So this is true for manifesting, it's true for praying. Anytime you get more than one person together, focusing on the same vision, the same prayer, the same signal, it's exponentially more powerful. And that's the value of joining a an organization or a military unit in this case. So I just, these are the latest insights that I've been having. This is what I'm working on personally, and I just, it's my job as the shaman of the community to share what I'm seeing on the horizon, and my advice on what to do about it. Should you be asking, and you can take it or leave it. I don't I don't engage much in debate. I get things, I put them out there, and then if they're wrong, I come back and say they were wrong. And along that note, I realized as well. I wrote my book, in 2006, Dreaming Your World into Being, and as a kind of way of sharing that true shamanism is an open system. We're always growing. You may think you know everything, but there's a whole set of everything you don't know still, and always will be. So we always remain with the empty teacup, the empty mind. Stay open. That's humility, openness, willing to continue to listen. In that spirit, towards the end of the book, I wrote something to the effect of, hey, everything I just wrote in this book could be wrong. I might die and get to the pearly gates, and St. Peter goes, hey, you should have stayed a Catholic, And so but there was a part of me that, that was sincere. It wasn't just glib. It was like, this might be true. Well, here we are, 2026, 20 years later. And I'm, I'm thinking that was probably one of the most profound things I probably said in the book, because my intention is to engage with that particular church just because that's the one I was raised in, and I'm familiar with, and I believe in the spiritual power of it, based on its history and its size and all the good stuff, as well as, like I've mentioned before, the deep ceremonial, symbolic. This is the mythic in shamanism, that they use a lot of the shamanic type ritual, ceremony, art, music, poetry as part of the spiritual power of prayer in this particular organization. And so I do very much appreciate that and find it to be very effective. So that's where I'm at. And so I'm always happy to answer questions. Always feel free to send me an email to john@dreamingintobeing.com. My website is thesoulalgorithm.com. I've got this Shaman Radio podcast that I'm going to put this on, and my YouTube channel that the video goes on. And I just really am grateful for the opportunity to be able to share the insights that I have. I am increasingly recognizing that there are people out there like this Chris Bledsoe that are leaps and bounds beyond what I thought I knew, and I'm always grateful to run into that. And I love having conversations on my podcast with people. I'm not a podcaster. This isn't what I do. I'm a shaman. I work with people. The writing, the articles, the book, all this stuff was incidental. So, I'm not I'm not focusing a lot of my energy on this, I guess is the way to say it, and trying to quote unquote make a living out of this or anything. In fact, my nature's always been fairly generous. I just want to give stuff, and I'm always happy to be supported. But I'm just super grateful that anyone would listen to anything I have to share. So, all right, well, we'll see what the year brings. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Stay focused. Stay present. Do whatever work you can do ahead of time when it's easy before it gets hard. That's all I can say. Take care and blessings.